lucky to get out of those escape rooms alive.
I need to know that the criminals who killed the 4 people in front of me are held accountable.
They're hiding in plain sight, in the middle of Manhattan.
We need to stop them.
I'm in.
When the first one came out, did you originally have an idea that you were going to take it any further? I imagine not, because these are different writers, gone through a few different hands now. Can you kind of tell me a little bit where the second one came from? Did it come out of nowhere, or did you have a kind of a plan B? If it did.
I mean, we look. I mean, I think I started movie one hoping that it could open up a world of multiple movies, but you know, for me, it was clear at the end of the first movie. Look, for a sequel to exist, I always feel like you gotta raise the stakes, and for us, you know, movie one was just a really the idea of Zoe being this terminally anxious girl who can barely leave her dorm room, and then by the end of the movie she's got like the fire of Zeus in her belly to go after this monolithic power that is Minos. I think that was kind of a cool hook, and but we didn't want to do what the first movie did in that sense of a bunch of people who think this is just a game, and so we realized quickly in the development of it, for me, it was like I had to have rooms that were worth, you know, a Minos worthy movie, a theatrical movie. So like that was really hard, was like coming up with, you know, set pieces that were going to be on par with the first. And the plane was always, that's the sort of the long game in terms of like where I wanted, you know, there's going to be a version of that, but it was like, I didn't want to give the audience what they expected necessarily. I wanted to throw some curveballs to them that would allow us to do things that show that Minos is expanded, right? They derail a train car. There's some surprises that we're going to learn through the course of movie two that really show that everything is not all that it seems, and that they literally can use us as pawns. You know, I always say that like the escape room part of their portfolio of death is just one part of their entertainment business. They might have engineered COVID. They might have, you know, tipped global markets. They are the Pied Pipers who play our lives. I thought the idea of that, and the idea that we don't have agency over our own lives, was just sort of kind of relevant today. It's kind of the way a lot of, I think, Americans feel, frankly. And so yeah, and then stepping back, it was clearly going to be a Zoe revenge story. I knew Ben was going to go along for the ride because he has this fealty to her. She saved his life. He might also have a crush on her. Why not? You know, super smart. So yeah. And then it became about like, okay, so what ways can we creatively kill people that we didn't do in the first movie, right? You have fire, gravity, you know, poison gas. And so that was the real hard part of this, developing this, was like, what are those? And it has to be visual. It can't be too gory, you know, and so it was a very iterative process.
I'm glad you said that, because you said it can't be too gory. For what reason? It was, you didn't want to go into kind of torture porn territory? You didn't want to kind of be the rival against Saw, or was there any specific reason why you didn't want it to go gory?
Look, I love gore, and left to my own devices, you know, Escape Room would have been a rated R, like lopping arms off. But the producers, when I came on to movie one, were very adamant that they wanted a PG-13. They wanted they wanted a movie that they could show their kids, like quite literally. And I saw that as an opportunity, an obstacle to challenge me to create tension, but not be relying on shock. And you know, and also because to differentiate from the other 10 Little Indians, people locked in space movies that exist, I wanted to make the rooms beautiful and have it be more of a celebration of a visual feast. The rooms themselves are characters, and so they transform and they change over time. You know, the beach scene in sequel, it's amazing, right? You come out, and it's like this cool sort of like Cape Cod feel. They snap a picture, all the photorealistic walls go away. Now you're in this warm, sun-drenched kind of vibe, this very kind of almost like a memory. And then it turns into night, you know, and then you've got this lighthouse that turns on, and we're in this and you didn't see all the color corrected stuff because it looks so much better now with all the DI love. But so yeah, it was a way to make the Escape Room sort of its own vibe. This idea that Minos is very meticulous about these beautiful spaces that kill people, so to speak. You know, from the swatches to the tiles to the choice of furniture. They're the Johnny Ives of death rooms.
We all know how this works. We solve the puzzles or we die.
One thing is to create an escape room, but to create an escape room that people aren't going to be able to play because they're going to be sat there almost like someone who's watching someone else playing a PlayStation. So how difficult was it in the process for you to kind of create these puzzles, these escape rooms for people that couldn't actually interact with it, but at the same time they were going to kind of feel really fully immersed in there with the characters?
Yeah, it's super challenging because like coming out of movie one, like a lot of the feedback we got was like the audience really loves interacting. But the problem with that is in a thriller, if you're showing the audience stuff before the characters, you lose some of the pacing, you lose some of the tension in a way. And so it was a really fine balance. And I would have liked, admittedly, more time with the script. I mean, there was, to be completely honest, this was very fast. This movie came together quickly, and then we were jumping into production. You know, it was like a year to the day from the movie coming out, the first movie, we were shooting the movie. And so I would have liked more time with the puzzles, but the immersion and the constant surprise, like what I love is that, you know, the clues in this movie are leading to a really cool reveal behind the scenes. In the first movie, they were sort of backstories of the characters. We felt like we didn't want to do that necessarily, do that idea again and be repetitive. So the narrative of the rooms is telling a story that we're going to learn about towards the end of the movie that is, I think, surprising. And it also expands the Minos mythology that, you know, all is not that it seems, and that, you know, the things you think you know might be completely obsolete. And the hard part with movie two was, you know, in movie one, you had a great 40 minutes where the characters felt like, oh, this is fun, this is cool, this is, you know, oh wow, that fire kind of came close, but this is kind of like Disney. In this movie, all of the players know the deal, and so you don't get any of that sort of the fun tongue-in-cheek that you got in the first one, because they know the stakes are life and death. So there was a bit of a seriousness to this that I think that the first movie was able to kind of play around with a little bit. So but yeah, the puzzles are always tricky. You know, you're trying to, I think the bank is really cool because it's a very linear objective, and it feels like the most of a game board in terms of A to B to C. But it's hard. And if you go and if you play an escape room game, you know, a lot of times in a real world escape room, the clues aren't linear, right? You find something, you put it in your pocket for a second, but then you forget about it. Then you find 3 more clues, and then you go, oh wait, what about that pencil that we found earlier? We need to use that pencil on this tic-tac-toe thing. In the movie, we couldn't afford to, because of the pacing, like we couldn't. It was harder to be non-linear with stuff. You know, you had to kind of go A to B to C, and so it was definitely a challenge. And I agree with you. Watching somebody play a video game would be the most boring thing to me personally. But what I'm relying on is that Zoe, the audience has such an affinity for that character and for Zoe and Ben, and they're rooting for them to survive. And the other irony is that Zoe does not want to play the game. You know, she's unwilling to just do what they want, and that's part of what it ultimately leads her to certain decisions in movie 2.
What about the actors themselves? I mean, it feels very authentic. But when they were actually taking part in all these different puzzles, did they know exactly how to go from A to B to C to D, or did you kind of leave a few options open to maybe kind of make it feel more kind of in the moment for them as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, everything is on the page, and because the rooms are so complicated, you know, we couldn't afford to just like, oh, just see what you find. It was like, you know, I knew like the train alone had 7 different lighting changes, and you know, it's like, oh, a lightning bolt has hit this piece, so our department would have to come in and take something out. And so it was like everything had to be strategically blocked, and so yeah, it would have been cool to let them kind of try to play it themselves, but we just didn't. the movie was so logistically challenging that we just didn't have the time to do a sort of a more free association version of that. I would have loved to have had that luxury, but we just, it was like we knew we needed to get Ben over to the boat, and he was going to sink, and so you have to figure out like where you put those pits in the set. The beach itself we shot practically, right? We had 20,000 kilos of sand that they brought in from a South African beach. It smelled like a giant crab, and then you had special effects people who were like turning on these giant pumps, and so you'd wait 30 seconds, and then suddenly the sand would start to aerate and then to start to sink. But now it's kicking up sand into the lens, and so it was. Yeah. So I say all this to explain how complicated it was. If it was a big Marvel movie, they would have just done all CG sand, and it would have all been controlled, and you'd had your latte, but this was like, no, we're actually going to sink you into a pit of sand. And so for better or worse, everything had to be strategically planned ahead.
Are there plans for another one if this goes down well? Have you spoken to the other writers and kind of, I imagine during lockdown, you've had plenty of time to think about other puzzles, other ways that you could take the story?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm somebody who never assumes anything, but there are so many ideas. We have a massive document of rooms, like the Keebler elves of Minos have been developing lots of ideas, lots of crazy ideas of ways of killing people. So there's never a shortage of that. We'll see. I think we definitely know where we would go with movie 3, but I think that's really going to be up to the audience, really, if they have an appetite for it.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time, Adam. I wish you the best.
No worries. Yeah, man, get that vaccine.
Yeah, I will do. Yeah. Okay. Stay safe. Speak soon.
Okay.
Take care then.
I'm not playing your game.